Hola chicos, en este video vamos a hablar del vocabulario 1 del capítulo 5. So we're going to cover vocab 1, chapter 5 in this video. We know that each chapter has 2 sections of vocab, so we'll be covering section 1 of vocab. So I'm here in my eStudio where I can look at all the pages of my textbook in a virtual format. So I'm going to go to my textbook, Chapter 5, vocab 1. Okay? So, we're going to go down the list. Don't forget you can click on and listen.
El equipo.
And it'll read the words for you, okay? So, here we have el equipo. This label's kind of difficult to interpret. El equipo is the whole team. La portería is the goal area. Now, this is different than the goal, like a score. And we'll talk about that in a second, okay? La portería is the goal area. Remember when we learned verdulería and frutería? It's kind of like the area where you have fruit or vegetables. Same idea. Portería. It's the area where we have the goal, okay? El portero is the goalie. He's the person in charge of the portería. These two are similar. You might get them confused, so be careful with that. Lanzar el balón. Lanzar is a cognate. It means to launch. So if you think about it, you're launching the ball into the air. Now let's look at some sentences to see that in context, okay? So we have los jugadores, which are the players. Juegan, they play fútbol. O juegan al fútbol. Either way. El portero guarda la portería. So he's guarding the goal. El jugador puede means can, which we'll look at more this chapter. Puede lanzar el balón con el pie. So if you're launching it with your foot, we wouldn't say that in English because it sounds goofy, but we say he kicks it. All right? Or tirar is an alternate verb to use, which means to throw. But if you tirar con el pie, then we know that you're not throwing with your foot, you are kicking it. Okay? No puede tocar el balón con la mano. He can't touch the ball with his hand. We learned back in chapter 3, ir a pie, to go by foot, and levantar la mano, which is to raise your hand. So we know pie and mano. Those are old for us. So let's look at some other vocab. We have el campo de fútbol. The word for field or court or anything like that when you're looking at sports is going to change a little bit. Generally, if it's a large open field like soccer or baseball, you are going to use campo. Okay, so we have el campo de fútbol. We want to remember that football in the rest of the world is not what we think football is. Football is soccer. Okay, so we have to be aware of that we're pretty much the only country that uses football for a different sport. All right. For sport, you don't actually use your feet in. So, then we have los aficionados. You might have seen this word before. This is also cognate. That's the fans. Now, if you score a goal, you would say meter un gol. Okay? So, this gol, that's the kind of goal that we're talking about, like a score. So, again, if we compare, the goal area is the portería, but an actual score that's worth a point is a gol. Okay? Here we have the goalie, no puede bloquear el balón. Bloquear is a great cognate. It means to block. Also notice that there's lots of vowels happening here. When you conjugate this verb, remember to take off the ending and only the ending. Okay? El balón entra en la portería, another cognate. It enters into the goal. El jugador marca un tanto. This expression, marcar un tanto, means to make a goal. Los aficionados aplauden. I bet you cognate ninjas can get what that means from there, okay? Here we have el tanto, which is the score. And lots of different countries will have lots of different words for this. So you might see los puntos, the points, or something similar. Okay, so wherever you're at watching sports, you just got to figure out what they're using. So here we have hay dos tiempos en el partido de fútbol. This, if we translate literally, there's 2 times. This doesn't mean times, but depending on the sport you're playing, you could play halves, quarters, periods, whatever. Okay, because some sports have 4 tiempos, some sports have 3 tiempos, and some sports have 2. So however many tiempos your sport has, That's what you would use, okay? As opposed to calling them halves or quarters, etc. El partido is the game. Now, it's important to distinguish el partido, which is a competitive game or a match, from a recreational game or a board game, etc., or a video game, okay? The partido applies only to a competitive match. And then in English, we call it games. So, cuando empieza el segundo tiempo, when the second half starts, los jugadores vuelven al campo. Volver is a synonym of regresar. That's old for you, so you should know regresar. So, we'll continue going down. We have cada equipo quiere ganar el partido. This chapter has a lot of new verbs in it, like every other chapter. And so, in class, we'll talk more about what those verbs mean. Cada means each, so each team wants to win the game. Of course they do. Pero no puede ser, it can't be. Un equipo pierde, one team loses. So here we have, again, we have our tanto, we have dos equipos, right? And looking over here on the side, we have some phrases. So when you want to express disappointment, you say, oh, qué pena, right? It kind of means like, oh, what a pain, like how sad. Or lo siento mucho, which means I'm very sorry. But when you want to find out what a friend thinks or what their opinion is about something, you might ask, ¿qué piensas? Or ¿qué piensas de? And then add the item. So, ¿qué piensas del equipo? What do you think about the team? They might say, oh, I think it's great. They always win. Okay? Down here, we're going to look at, we're finally learning colors, which is fun. So we have la jugadora. So that's the player. So you have el jugador, la jugadora. So depending on whether they're male or female, of course you would add that A. Then we have la camiseta. La camiseta is the jersey or the shirt. This is very similar to camisa, but in sports it's a camiseta. We have el pantalón corto. So we know pantalón and now we have a pantalón corto. Los calcetines largos. So calcetines are socks, but these are largo. They're long. It looks like large, but it's a false cognate. Okay? So these are tall socks, whatever you want to call them. And then we have las zapatillas, which we already know are tennis shoes. Okay? Moving over here, we have the colors rosado or rosada. Literally rosed. Right? I love that expression. So it's rose colored, pink. Negro or negra. Amarillo, amarilla. Gris. This kind of looks baby blue in the picture, but it actually is gray. Anaranjado is orange. You'll see this, but I usually just use naranjo. Either of those is okay. I prefer naranjo because it's shorter. So there. De color marrón. You will see this. This means brown. You can say de color café, which I use more often. Both of those mean the same thing. Here we have blanco, verde, white, green, rojo or roja, and azul. We know azul and verde from chapters back where you could have ojos azules. We want to remember that the Z sounds like an S, right? Azul. And we also want to remember that gris, verde, and azul do not change for gender. They change for plurality, but not for gender. Alright, don't worry about the para conversar box, but that's kind of our main vocab 1 for this unit. It should be enough to get you through some of the preliminary exercises that we'll be doing. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye!